Huzzah, Rangers. This is Phil Harris here again at the Jacks Rangers show. I've got Dave McVeigh here with me from the Yeti Poet Rugby YouTube channel. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing very well. How about you, Phil?
Not too dang bad. Not too dang bad. Did want to announce to everybody that we just hit the goal of the $250 for the Coach Ryan Martin Hat Fund. So I'm making arrangements for a big check presentation at the next home game against NOLA. So that'll be a lot of fun. Thanks for everybody that donated to that. We appreciate it very much.
Absolutely, it was a lot of fun, and it should be a good gag.
Yeah, for sure. I've got 4 paper here, so I'm just going to go ahead and get into Free Jacks news. 2 Free Jacks made the MLR Geico 15 this week. Joe Johnston and Mitch Wilson. Congrats to both of them. Well deserved for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. They both put in great shifts this past week.
This really doesn't fit into Free Jacks news, but I wanted to share this story that I have about Spider real quick. I should have done this a week ago. It was during the hot game that we had. I saw Spider walking by himself. I was at the Jacks Club on top of the hill. He was below there. There's that little walking path where the fence is right beside of it, and then you're on the pitch. So he's walking on that walking path beside of the fence. One of the players, I want to say this was halftime or before the game, they were kicking just to practice on the pitch. A ball bounces over the fence right in front of Spider. Okay.
Perfect.
And without hesitation, this is what blew my mind as I'm watching. I don't think anybody else saw this, by the way, Dave.
Yep.
Spider picks up the ball, reaches into his pocket, pulls out a Sharpie, signs the ball, and throws it back onto the pitch in one motion. There was no hesitation. There was no I shouldn't do this. I'll get in trouble. Just unbelievable. What a guy.
Classic Spider.
For sure.
He is he really is a character, and it's just effortless for him. You're like, this isn't a bit, you know, this is just Spider. This is the guy.
That's him. That's
living his best life.
Looks like a couple of lads, including the birthday boy Kyle the Eagle Sequeira, have invaded Nashville on the bye week. A lot of cowboy hats and noodle bag underwear pics. Too many, one might say, but hey, you guys have fun,
Yeah, absolutely. They're having a good time.
Yeah.
Happy that they can cut loose a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely needed it. It's been a really tough stretch here, and they've performed a lot and put themselves through a lot, through this middle of the season. So
absolutely
enjoy the bye week, boys.
Well-deserved break for sure.
Yep.
It's a slow news week. I did want to let you know that I'm debuting, as they say in New Zealand, new Pit Viper glasses for future games. So I ordered some new ones. They are pretty pricey, but I wanted to make the commitment because we got some good games coming up. So I'll have some flashy new Pit Vipers to wear at future games.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it should be fun.
I'll be able to spot you from my seats on the 10-meter line.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So observations. Now we're moving into rapid reaction. They're going to be a little bit more rapid than they used to be. I'm trying to speed up the other games here. Observation. Sure, no movement up or down for teams in both conferences in round 13, which is amazing.
Yeah.
DC.
Yeah, pretty static and some good results. So
yeah, for sure. DC versus NOLA. Your teammate, Mr. Palamo there, had a great galloping show and go try at 14 minutes in. Dave taught him everything he knows, I'm sure.
That's right. Yeah. My friend Chris Steele, who we call Spalding on the Charles River Rats, because he looks like a character from a certain film about college party life. He already made that joke on Facebook, so I just have to give him credit. He posted the highlights from the Total Rugby Network to his Facebook page and was like, learned everything from me, taught this guy at all. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's pretty cool when you get the chance to just hang out with those guys, and then you see next week they're scoring tries and being elite athletes.
Unbelievable story that you can tell your grandchildren one day.
Absolutely. You just feel so proud,
Yeah. Dallin referred to him as more dangerous than a sneeze during the broadcast.
Always good for a one-liner.
Absolutely. 14-14 at halftime. NOLA went down to 13 men due to 2 yellow cards, but were able to score 3 points during this time. DC didn't score any points during that point, which is amazing. NOLA had just enough to beat DC on the day. Some exciting stuff towards the end of the game from DC's winger, DeMonte Noble. 3-game losing streak for DC at this point, though. Ouch. I think it's pretty safe to say that they're out of playoff contention now at this point.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Mhm.
There's theoretically could make it, and then there's probabilistically, could make it. And I think from a probability standpoint, at least, they're toast. I don't know if mathematically they're completely out yet, just because I didn't check the numbers, but I know it's getting close, and we're starting to see the eliminations.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of eliminations, Toronto at Austin. Austin had never beaten Toronto coming into this game. 8-19 halftime lead for Austin. This clip went viral. There was an interception at the 63rd minute by prop Larome White, who was running like the wind for what seemed like 70 meters for a try that all the forwards loved to watch. So, run, big boy, run. That was really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. What else do you want out of a front row player? This is exactly what coaches mean when they say fresh legs. Mm-hmm. You get sent out there and they say, all right, you got fresh legs. Yeah. That's why you see a front rower make that pick. He had a little bit of a line adjustment. He runs a smart line. He makes sure that his pursuers have to run farther than he does. Yeah. And, he makes it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, you love to see it.
Yeah, who doesn't love an 80-meter run from a prop?
I know. That's that total rugby that you were talking about. 80 meters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible. Fireworks at the end of the game looked like the start of World War III. Once again, Adam Gilchrist burning through money like a redneck that just won the lottery.
Yep.
So Toronto loses this game. By the way, I'm not even reading the score, so let me jump back for a second. Nola Gold 25, Old Glory DC 21, and this game that we're talking about just now, 21 to Toronto Arrows, 47 to Austin Gilgronis. So Toronto loses this game. Now, what's interesting about Toronto, that's why I said that they're probably not going to make the playoffs, because international call-ups are going to decimate Toronto. That might be all, but they might be out of they might be all but out of the playoff race at this point, if I can get my words out. There we go.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk about like the international call-ups as a separate item, or do that later maybe. But awesome. Yeah, they are going to be more than any other team affected by it. Yeah. Absolutely. So they are looking at a pretty grim few weeks if they are looking for a playoff spot. I mean, and in last place with 23 points, it's pretty much over for them. They're playing for pride.
It's been grim so far the entire year with them not being able to sleep in their own beds and all that sort of stuff. So just misery on top of misery for Toronto for the next couple of weeks as well.
Tough year.
Yeah, for sure. The next game was San Diego at Utah, and the score on that one was 41 San Diego and 45 Utah. Now, some folks were saying this was the game of the year so far, Dave. A lot of running rugby. It was a tri-fest, but it was a low-scoring game at the halftime with San Diego leading 14-10. There was an Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that's kind of what you hope to see. I think a lot of the time from a rugby game is a really close, low-scoring first half, and then a kind of a fireworks show of a second half. Is for me, that's like the perfect day at the pitch. Like that's a perfect rugby game.
Absolutely.
That's how like New Zealand beats everybody, right? Like it looks for a first half, hey, they might have it. Maybe this is the time, and then the second half they just blow everybody up.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good, effective model. Defenses start to break down.
There was an offensive explosion in the second half. All hell broke loose, as we like to say where I come from. Utah was down by 15 at the 66th minute. Then mounted a comeback to win the game right at the death. Very entertaining game. I watched the highlights. I was blown away by what I saw. Just amazing effort from Utah to win that game.
Yeah, absolutely. They played a great match. They hung in there, like you said, just at the very death, down by 15, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Pretty big. And we're all Utah fans next week.
That's right. Oh yeah.
So yeah, good for them, and we'll be rooting for you. Mika Cruz and Mikey Teo.
Oh boy,
what more do you want?
Yeah. He literally does look like a barrel with arms. I think he's been referred to that by Dallin.
Yeah. I love those guys. I've played against a few of those people, like in the New England region, the last 15 years or so. The level I've been in, I've just bumped into a few people over the years who can just consistently do that. Fly halves who are built that same way, and like, man, it doesn't matter. And your feet get moving. Speed is speed.
Yeah.
And if you've got the pass and you've got the moves, you can do it. It's one reason I love rugby so much.
Oh yeah, it's for everybody. Atlanta at New York. This game really pissed me off, to be honest with you. I was really hoping that Atlanta would do us a favor. I'm calling the Dirt Pickers New York this week because they actually played in the state of New York this week. But I did get official confirmation that they're back in New Jersey next week. So you know what that means, Rangers. We're calling them New Jersey going forward from this episode. The score on this one was 24 Atlanta to 31 to New York. Unfortunately, we did not get the points that we needed from Atlanta on this one to move away from New York, and maybe we could kind of catch up. But it was not to be. This was the leaders of the pack match. Atlanta could have done us a nice favor by beating New York, but of course, in typical Atlanta fashion, they failed to deliver. 17-12 halftime, New York leading the way. Interesting moment at the end with Atlanta down by 7. New York commits a penalty, so Atlanta chooses to kick for touch, but it doesn't go out of bounds.
Yep.
And New York, gains possession, then kicks the ball out of bounds to win the game. Typical Atlanta sports, right there, guys. That is just, all of the history right there to that moment.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I mean, it is pretty Atlanta of them.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, just really, really wanted Atlanta to win that game, like you already said. Would have put us in a much, much better position coming into the last few weeks. But you get what you get. That's rugby.
Yeah, it sure is. Maybe next week we'll see it. New York losing. Okay, so this was the living embodiment. So this was at Houston and LA. So the score on this one, guys, and this is not a typo: 5 Houston to 52 LA.
Yeah, largest margin in MLR history, I believe.
Yeah.
Set a new record.
And it wasn't even close. It's not like it was some sort of close game that where it was like even possession or anything like that. So this was the living embodiment of the Simpsons meme, stop, he's already dead. The score was 52-0 at 73 minutes into the game, Dave. Have you ever seen such a butt whooping in professional rugby?
No, I mean, you hope it doesn't continue too much. It is the top team and the bottom team. It's bound to happen here and there. And, in and of itself, it's not a big deal. If you like tries, it's a good match to watch. You're going to get to see a lot of them. It can be a good way to learn. Watch a match like that and just look for the mistakes, because you're going to find mistakes. So when you see those tries coming, try and spot and find, what creates that opportunity.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a couple ways to try to enjoy it. Yeah. Otherwise, it's quite a drubbing.
Imagine being a Houston fan watching that game. Ugh, yikes.
Yeah, it's not fun. You feel like you can't turn it off because, you want to stick with them, but it isn't pretty. Glad it wasn't a shutout.
It's tough. Yeah, that's one thing that they can kind of hang their hat on, I guess, or hang their head up for. It says, look, I wrote on here, look out, Major League Rugby. LA is back at home, and they're looking like world beaters again. Houston got a consolation maul try at the 74th minute to end the shutout. Whoopee! So,
yeah, no parades.
Yeah. One thing I will say about this, I mentioned this on the Tammy interview. LA, we don't like you, or at least I don't. But damn it, we respect you, okay? What you're doing is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the truth. You can't, there's always a little bit of haters gonna hate element with LA this season, because people were just already ready to hate them, and then, man, when people don't like somebody and they do well, and the best revenge is living well, right? So I guess the LA's having their revenge this season.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Now that leads us to our match against the Seattle Seawolves, who had 21 to our 25 New England Free Jacks. So Seattle drew first blood, very similar to how New England likes to start a game, with a quick try 2 minutes in. Our mall defense looked amazing, Dave, during the first few minutes before the Seattle try, but Seattle went wide and scored with their backs.
Yeah, they we were very physical in the first couple minutes. It's a great mall to watch. It's in the highlights. You don't even have to go back to the full match. If you watch the highlights, you see that little battle because it leads directly to the try a few phases later. Yeah, they just ran a neat little switch back. They took advantage of, we had kind of three defenders stacked vertically, all running to cover width. And they recognized that and just attacked right behind it. It was a really good move, and quite effective.
Yeah, smart play on their part for sure.
Yeah.
Great crossfield kick from Waka to our boy Mitch Wilson, who is back in the starting lineup at 15 minutes gone for a try. Brian Hightower mentioned our special guest interview of the week, which is Doc. He mentioned his tattoo during the broadcast, which is pretty cool, talking about him having a Free Jacks tattoo. And breaking news, he might be not the only one to get one. I'm thinking about getting one myself, to be honest.
Oh, you thinking about it?
Yeah,
I've been toying with the notion.
Cool.
We'll see. I am enjoying it. Maybe if they make the playoffs.
There you go. Yeah.
I'll get a Free Jacks tattoo. I'll get myself a lantern.
Tell you what, we should do it together and then film it for the show.
Yeah, sure thing.
Cool, man. So 10-14 Seattle after 25 minutes, which I don't think anyone other than Rucky himself would have predicted. I was puzzled that a team that had traveled over 3,000 miles would look like the better team in our house. So I'm kind of a little fired up just reading that. So that's kind of the theme for the rest of the game until the very end there. I was pissed watching the game.
Yeah, it was a little bit frustrating at times. In that first half, Seattle looked a lot more hungry. It wasn't the physicality, like you mentioned. That mall defense was just ferocious, before the Seattle try. To me, the Free Jacks looked like a team that needs a bye week, right? Like they looked mentally tired. Coach Martin likes to talk about behaviors, and one thing I noticed was like ball on the deck behavior was like a club rugby match at times, where guys were just seeing, anytime a player watches the ball fall to the deck, and bounce on the ground and isn't just fully committing to recover that ball, is a little bit worrisome, right? It's just a reaction time thing, if nothing else. And things like that were not great. Mitch Wilson was an exception there. And to just the general first half, he wasn't the only one, but he really stood out. In the first half, he had a fantastic tackle covering when Reichert Hatting had a big break.
Yep.
And Wilson came in from the far wing, so he has to, run all the way back and across the field. And around midfield, I think it's about 5 or 10 meters out from the try line, he gets in and he makes a hit, and he doesn't make the tackle himself, right? Hatting is a big dude. He's on his way out, to train, to play for the USA and out in England and Ireland, right? Like he made the squad. He's legit. This is a guy who's going to get some Eagles caps in the coming weeks. And Wilson covered from a great distance and made a just high energy hit that staggered him. And then 2 or 3 other pursuing players were right there to bring him down. And it saved a try that would have been the difference in the match. He did phenomenally in that first half.
Very proud of him for sure. Good to see him back into the squad. What else we got here? Down at halftime with the same score. All I could think was upset alert. We kept hearing it all week, and that was what was echoing in my mind. After halftime, a beautiful pass from former Wasps man Ross Neal to Seattle's number 11 helped Seattle maintain the lead. At this point, it was 21-13, 53 minutes in, and I'm pissed. I spent a long time at the game with a scowl on my face, shaking my head and crossing my arms. I looked like I was at a Carolina football game, sad but true.
Yeah, that was about the time that I was texting with a friend of mine who's a big Seattle sports fan. I've talked about him before.
Yeah.
And I just said, right now it looks like Seattle have it. And then I kind of caught myself. It was a group text, And then I said, well, you know, if they don't Seattle it. And
Oh,
then they did, as he would say, proceed to Seattle it. Not to take anything away from the Free Jacks. They played hard, and it was, your and my mistake to count them out, right?
yeah.
These guys have shown that they just don't give up. They've got grit coming out their eyeballs. But it was a low point there. Something we just haven't seen at home. We're a little bit spoiled, and we continue to be a little bit spoiled with our undefeated home stretch. So, nothing lasts forever. It's gonna sting when it comes, but it
Hopefully it
wasn't
won't be
this
until
week.
next year.
Yep, not until next year. The first season at undefeated at home, that'd be a beautiful thing.
Oh my God, can you imagine? Oh, popping champagne bottles, baby. Woo!
Fort Union Point. They'll never be allowed to move to a new stadium.
No, right, exactly. Let's see here. Some pretty line breaks by Conradi and Joe Johnston around this time kept the crowd into it, right? Harry Barlow, aka Harry Barton, as we call him on this show, scores a wide out try in the corner to make it 18-21, 55 minutes in. So we're hanging around in the game. My moment of the match comes from former Seattle man Billy gathers an overthrow line out well into Seattle's 22 after 74 minutes. Last week it was Khalifi. This week it's Billy, former Seawolves making Seattle pay. You love to see it. And then Peter Janssen, your boy, scores after the 75th minute with a huge roar from the crowd to secure the comeback win for our boys, undefeated at home, 5 in a row. What a great feeling, Dave.
Yeah, it was a fantastic finish. The hunger is what, is why Bealey was up there to get that ball. That is a reaction thing. And that's an example of how that shifted from the first half to the second half. We were on fire, from at that point, and we stay on fire through the end of the match. And it really carried us through. He was all over the ball. He ran the ball again 1 or 2 phases later. Like he was up looking for work, and he got up to the line. He almost had it.
Yeah.
He was very close. And then a couple more phases, and Peter Janssen got in. It was fantastic. Really fun to watch. And I mean, the best way to win, really, right? Just steal the ball, run some phases, and power it through. They didn't take them too long to get ahead, and then they managed the game pretty well after that. I know they kicked the ball away at one point, and people around me in the stands had a big reaction to that, kicking the ball away with what looked like 2 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, groaning, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I pointed out that every home match, the scoreboard clock has hit 80 a little bit before the match does. That clock is getting stopped after the referee stops his whistle, or stops his watch, right? He blows his whistle for time off and stops his watch, and then the stadium clock keeps ticking a little bit. So it looks like there's 1.5 minutes left, and you're thinking, why don't you just run some phases and kick it out? But that's a long time to run phases inside your half and close to your 22. So kicking it away was a smart decision there. They went down, they managed it defensively. They got the ball back, and they kicked it out at the end. They did a good job. I want to also note that the referee did a fantastic job. I thought he controlled what was a really physical match very well. That was Scott Green, the tattooed ripped ref. It was always good time. I heard several good lines this weekend. One guy just shouted from the stands down to him, "How much can you bench?" And then one of my buddies in my section, one of the other season ticket holders, Daniel, at one point said, I really like this guy. It's a lot easier to keep your mouth shut when you have to worry that the referee might, if you heckle him, he might just climb into the stands and kick your ass. So it really brings an extra level. But he really did a great job. The scrums in particular, he called very judiciously. He communicated with the teams about what he saw and why that made him call what he called. And that's really all you can ask for. At one point, Josh Larson was protesting when the Free Jacks had an attacking scrum. The penalty went against him. And he's, basically saying like, why would we risk that? Right? Like, we have an attacking scrum. We're not going to throw it away. Our front rows aren't idiots. And he just said, listen, you show me the picture. We're looking for certain visual indicators, and, Seattle's indicators were correct and New England's indicators were incorrect. And he had clearly been, talking to Josh about that. And that's what you need to make corrections. And that's why you saw penalties going both directions in the scrum. He was communicating with the packs well, and they were able to adjust and fix issues. People are always going to be frustrated, with how it goes. Front row players, I mean, like things don't always go your way. Scrums go down. It's never fun. You always feel like you're doing it right. But in the end, I think it was very fair. And in a match where there were a fair number of scrum penalties, it wasn't just one of the two teams getting tooled on. They went both directions, and it really kept the scrum a really good contest. It made it a good match to watch if you're a fan of scrummaging.
Yeah, he did a great job. I mean, we on this show have criticized some calls in the past, or me specifically. So I mean, when we see good refereeing, well, let's call it out. I mean, he did a great job for sure.
Yeah.
Now moving on to my musket-sized pants 10 of the week. You want to guess who this is? It's really easy.
Is it Mitch Wilson, my boy?
No. So, most of the time. Musket-sized pants 10 is the opposition.
Yes. I can't remember his name. Your buddy from Sal, is it?
Ross Neal. So
Ross Neal.
It was always going to be Ross Neal, former Wasp man. I think you guys know this.
Wasps. Yeah, sorry. I was thinking I have Sal Sharks on the brain because
that's all right.
What we'll talk about later.
Yeah, AJ McGinty, I got you.
Yeah.
One of my favorite players that is not on the Free Jacks, Ross Neal, gets the musket-sized pants 10 of the week. Moving on to MVP of the game. Did you want to go first or me?
I can go first. For me, it's Mitch Wilson. He is that what you got? There you go. He brought the energy they had to have in the first half. I don't think I mentioned he also had a great steal at one point where guy just got tackled and was isolated, and he reacted like a flanker. I mean, he absolutely pounced. He wasn't even close to the breakdown. Covered a bunch of ground, got in, beat the support player, and won the penalty. It was beautiful. He was just doing everything he needed to do, defensively, offensively, on the kicks. He's so good on the kick chase. It's so much fun to watch. Just great under the high ball. So yeah, Mitch Wilson.
So this is a clean sweep for Mitch this week. I went back and forth on this one as well. I think Waka did a great job of 10 again. Conradi gained about 100 meters by himself, which is incredible for a forward. Joe Johnson had some great runs as well, but I'm going to give my award to a guy that has been out of the lineup for several weeks, only to come back as a starter against Seattle. He bagged himself a try and got into the MLR Geico 15 of the week. Take a bow, Mitch Wilson. So yeah, our boy. You know what? You're right about it's so surprising to see him make those tackles because he's not a big guy. If you guys have ever seen him, it's so cool to watch. We love in New England. We love the undersized player that plays above their punching weight. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Yeah, we love those guys. So Mitch Wilson, this one is for you, brother. You're MVP of the game for both myself and Dave. So that's awesome. All right, so this is a bye week, guys. So we're going to be kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do on Saturdays and Sundays this week, other than watching games on the MLR that are going on. So the preview, there's no match because this is a bye week, baby. So, but Dave and I are going to preview the upcoming July internationals by considering who will replace Captain Josh Larson as captain because he is going into the Canada squad. Who will take up the vice captain role as well? This was presented to us by Kenny Thompson on the Facebook supporters group.
Yep. Yeah, I've had some conversations with him in the stands. He's always fun to talk about rugby with, and a big fan. Does a lot of rugby travel. If you've ever thought about going to World Cup or Lions Tour or something like that, Kenny's a good guy to talk to just because he's got the experiences. He can tell you what it's like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes a great rugby captain, Dave?
Yeah, I was considering that this week. And I have a question for you. I'll answer, and then I have a question for you along with your answer. So I think a captain has to always play when they're healthy, which is, partially an ability thing. Doesn't necessarily mean they have to be the most athletically gifted player out there. Some captains are just incredibly reliable, right? More than like superlatively
Mhm.
athletic performers. But they got to always play. It's got to be somebody who should always be, playing if healthy.
Mhm.
Somebody who leads by example with their, decisions and behaviors on the pitch.
Yep.
Part of that is their composure. Your captain is somebody who talks to the referee,
Yep.
and that means they have to have a certain bearing. They're the interface between the team and the match official, and the match official is the sole judge of fact on the pitch. So it matters. You need to
Amen.
be able to appeal to him.
Mhm.
And they also have to be a culture leader for the team, which means different things for different teams. It's somewhat invisible to us as fans, because that's really about things like practice and match prep, and how the players comport themselves around what for these guys is their job,
Yeah.
right? So I think those things are all a big part of it. I'm curious to hear your answer, and I want to know the teams you've been on. How have the captains been selected? Who selected the captains?
It's a vote. It's a vote
By
by
the players?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, same for me.
Now,
I've only been on one club really, except for my first year playing rugby.
yeah.
So we also voted annually as part of our annual general meeting. But I was curious how you've done it. I know at lower levels it's picked by a coach generally,
Right.
but once you get into club, for better or worse, it's democratic, baby. Usually.
What's interesting about that is I know that I can't. His first name is Pat. I can't remember his last name, but he used to be a punter for the Indianapolis Colts. He was talking about football in regards to the captains, and they supposedly vote, but it's kind of like a rigged system where the coach stuffs the ballot box apparently. So it's like it's coaches' guys to become captains for professional
Right.
football. I don't know if that's every single team or if that's the experience for the Colts in general. But while he was on the team,
Right.
like he was kind of alluding to, it's kind of a rigged system.
It makes some sense too, just given the size of football teams. That
Yeah.
sort of like the captain is the conduit from the team to the referee in rugby. The captain is almost a coach to team conduit in football in a way that it isn't always in other sports.
Absolutely. So in terms of what I wrote down with things that would make a great captain, I wrote down communication, level-headedness, a strategic mind, game management skills, great understanding of the laws of rugby because you have to communicate with the referee with what you're seeing that maybe he might be seeing. Yeah, that's what I wrote down.
Which includes understanding how referees call matches. I mean, at the international level, when you're talking about that level of preparation, I don't know how much MLR teams do this. They may, though. I mean, to be a coach to coach thing. Teams prepare for the referees that they will be having, in terms of like how to talk to them, when to talk to them. There's been a couple good articles about how the Springboks did that this past World Cup. It's even that is a strategic element, how to do that. It's so important to be able to talk to the ref, to get your point across, and literally not to annoy them, like not to get on their bad side, and to be respectful.
Hang on, I lost my train of thought for a second here. Let me see here. So in terms of who you think will be, let me see here. I think that without a doubt, the captain in Josh's absence will be Waka, who is currently the vice captain. The real question in my eyes is who will be the vice captain with Josh's absence in the international test that he will be doing in July.
Yeah. It is a pretty good question. I think that it would probably be a forward. It doesn't have to be, but generally it's very nice to have a balance between the forwards and the backs. I know when it's democratic, in my experience, it's almost always balanced out that way. But it's a little bit tough to call. There are kind of a lot of candidates. If you look at just some of the criteria, people who always play when they're healthy, they're very reliable performers, people who lead by example. Everybody on this team has a great work rate. It's one of the reasons they're so much fun to watch.
Absolutely.
So a lot of these are actually pretty level. And it comes down to some of the invisible factors, and it makes it hard for us on the outside to pick the best candidate. There are a lot of people like Peter Janssen, Eric de Jager, who've put in tons of minutes.
Yep.
Front rowers are usually not looked to as captains, particularly props,
Yeah,
because they are so routinely replaced. That doesn't mean that they can't be. It just means that usually they're not the first choice if there's, another good option. Jackson Thebes has performed really consistently,
Yep.
and is very low on the penalty counts. He's had a couple in the mauls, like getting excited, reaching for balls and stuff.
Yeah.
But he's a good candidate in the forwards. I kind of like to let the guys who are really on fire just keep doing what they're doing. So I would shy away from Joe Johnston, somebody who on attack has just been really phenomenal and seems to just be on another level sometimes when he's out there.
Right.
When Scotland made Stuart Hogg the captain, his game dipped a little bit, and it could just be coincidence. There's no way to know the causality, but a lot of people talked about, you have a lot more going through your head when you're captain, and it can be nice if you have players who are really high performing to not rock the boat there.
Yeah.
I kind of excluded Vian Conradi as well, just because he's getting called out. So like he couldn't replace Josh because he also won't be here. He's
Right.
a natural candidate. His play has been phenomenal. He's got international experience, which usually is going to translate to, high level of professionalism and knowing what a team culture should look like. Do you want me to tell you my pick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I would pick Tara Matembu
I
with
got the same one. Yes.
Simpatico. Well, I'll go with a backup then, because my caveat is he's spent less time playing with the team than some other candidates.
Right.
So it truly comes down to the invisible factor of like, how has he clicked? He could already be a leader on the team and be ready to step into a captain role. He could be deliberately stepping back from a leadership role because he's not the captain. He's done that in the past, and he wants to give the other captains room and other players room to step into it. It's tough to know what that dynamic is, and that dynamic is really going to dictate whether he's the best candidate or not. I think he has the credentials, he has the composure, he has the work rate. He works so hard on the pitch, and I think he would be an excellent choice to lead almost any team he is on. Probably, he just is a phenomenal presence on the pitch. So that's what I would pick. Barring Matembu, I think I would probably pick Peter Janssen, because he's in the front row, but he's a hooker who don't always get subbed off as consistently as props do. That's a little bit out the window in MLR anyway, because it's going to come down to who you have available, and it's not as consistently going to be the best decision to pull people off.
Gotcha. So let me read through my thoughts here. There are some compelling candidates, but if it was me, the vice captain should be a forward. Since the captain Waka is a back, the vice captain should be a consistent starter with a lot of professional experience. Natalie Joshua mentioned this man in the Facebook supporters group, and I think he is spot on. Tara Matembu, he has been a captain at the Super Rugby level. He has the experience, and he can continue. If he can continue to get solid minutes for the team, I think it's a no-brainer. That's something that you were kind of mentioning earlier, is that he hasn't been a consistent starter. He hasn't been with the team the entire time. He was one of those the late people flown in because of the visa situation.
And Ryan Martin addressed that a little, not directly, but he said something that kind of touches on that in one of the interviews with Dallin Stanford, the coach's corner from last week, I think, where he was talking about roster changes. And he said that he is of kind of a general philosophy of, if things are working, don't upset it. So that to some degree explains Matembu's absence from the rosters when he came. He was late, and then there's very much a guys who are performing well and doing what we need to do are going to continue to do that and get that opportunity. And that explains some of the roster moves through the season, I think. Not that I feel like they should have been different, but you see a lot of stability week to week.
Mhm.
The guys who are playing are the guys, 1 week are going to be the guys who are playing the next week. And wins and losses don't really seem to have a big effect on that, which I like. It means that Ryan has a really clear philosophy for what he wants to be doing. And he's not, just a weather vane out there, risk blowing whichever way the wind blows. It speaks to his composure. But it's also why it's taken Matimbu a little bit of time to get in. Now that he's in there and he's starting, I wouldn't expect him to go anywhere. I think that 6 jersey is his to lose at this point, and we'll probably see him performing there really consistently for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that'd be great. He's done a fantastic job since he's come in, for sure. I did want to mention, because you were mentioning Coach Ryan Martin, I was able to give a sticker to TK, and I told him, please deliver this to Coach Ryan Martin. And he said,
excellent.
So hopefully Coach Ryan Martin has our sticker at this point for the Jacks Rangers show. That's so cool.
I'll have to come hang out in the Jacks Club. My word. You meet all the coolest people out there.
Yeah, it's what's interesting is, do I want to get on my soapbox about this? Maybe a little bit. Okay. So Jacks Club is supposed to be an upcharge situation for the founding members. So I went ahead and got the 2 Jacks Club membership for the entire year. I paid a pretty penny for it.
Yeah.
And what's kind of irking me is that you have to get the wristband to be in the Jacks Club. And I know this sounds so elitist, but I paid money, so I'm just gonna rant for a second.
Absolutely.
Anybody can just walk into the Jacks Club at this point. And it's like, I'm just like, what is going on here? I feel like I've wasted money. So
what did I pay for? If anybody can just walk up and hang out, then other than like a couple drinks at each match or whatever, right? Is that part of it? Yeah.
So you get 2 free drinks per wristband. So, right. I've got myself and my girlfriend, so we got 4 drinks in total. So, yeah, it's been nice. Otherwise, other than that, anybody can just practically walk in there, it seems like, and just, ruin all of our wine and cheese crowd fun.
I know. How can you enjoy it when you have to slum it with the hoi polloi?
Yeah. Anyway, let's see here. Okay, so we've talked about all this. Oh, yeah. But I wanted to mention that as I was leaving, Coach Ryan Martin and TK were still in their coaching area beside Jacks Club. So I yelled out, I waved at him, and he recognized me, and TK did, of course, as well. And I was like, 5 in a row, this is awesome. And I was just like, whoa! And they seemed to appreciate that very much.
That's great.
Final thing here is respect the kicker. We've got a little segment here to talk about that. There was a recent post that got a lot of traction in the Facebook group, supporters group there, about respecting the opposition kicker while they were kicking for points. So we decided to put up a poll, and I have the results, Dave.
Yes, I saw the early results, but I haven't checked today. So I'm curious if the trend continued.
The question was, should our fans, that's you Rangers listening in, respect the kicker at Fort Union Point? And the Facebook supporters group got the most votes, and it was a landslide. The hell yeses were 63 to hell no's 5.
5, wow.
Yeah. So
12-1.
Yeah, I'm playing the role of devil's advocate. So I voted hell no on all of these.
I believe I was the second vote with a hell yeah, because I like respecting the kicker as a tradition.
We'll get into that in 1 second. So Twitter was 2 hell yeses to 3 hell no's, or just 5 votes in total on Twitter. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And I told my girlfriend about this, as I was like, I cannot believe that this took place. So on Instagram, the hell yeses were 7. The hell no's were 17.
Oh, that is interesting.
Now, check this out. So a lot of the Free Jacks players follow me on Jacks Rangers on Instagram. So they seem a lot more active on there than Facebook, yada, yada.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All 3 of the Free Jacks players that cast their votes, voted hell no.
Really?
I'm not going to call anybody out. I want to respect their privacy, but you would be surprised who those 3 people were that voted hell no.
That is interesting.
So all of the Free Jacks players that participated said, hell no, we should be rowdy and yell during the opposition kicker taking their kick.
That is interesting. That's food. That's food for thought.
My jaw was on the...
I wonder how now. I don't know who it is, and so this isn't a specific comment, but I do know that anytime you talk to a kicker about does crowd noise matter, if the crowd is razzing you, does it rattle you, they will always say no. And I don't think they're lying.
Mhm.
I think that they truly are athletes and they're in the zone, and it doesn't actually have a tremendous effect. I like it because it's kind of an affectation. It's a fun little thing that makes rugby a little bit different.
Mhm.
Not because I think we're being gentlemen and women and, not disrupting the delicate kicker who we could easily disturb with the power of our voices,
Right.
So I don't think that kickers care.
Okay.
I think it would make sense for kickers to be like, no, yeah, I'll go for it. Like, it doesn't actually matter. Because I think to the people doing the kicking, I don't think they care. It's everybody else who cares.
Yeah.
Like, everyone else
Right.
is who it actually matters to.
Right. So just a quick little brief introduction to this for our thoughts. For me, I am a respect the kicker guy. Now, in previous years, I was 100% on that side of the fence. In recent years, though, with the MLR becoming a thing, I'm more 60-40 on this. Okay. Um, Ultimately, I think that over the next, let's say, 10 or 15 years, if the MLR continues to exist, which we all hope it does, and we bring in these new fans that are not rugby people, because that is what is going to be needed for the success of this league.
Absolutely.
I don't think that this is going to be a question anymore. I think it's going to be, we're going to have crowd noise when the kicker is kicking, and that's just going to be that. That is my opinion on it. I do not yell. I don't think I've ever yelled during an opposition kicker. I have been in a full stadium, well, practically full, when USA played Scotland in Houston for us to win our first game against a tier 1 nation. So long story short, if you didn't see the game, Scotland scores. They're down by a point. They need the conversion to win the game. Otherwise, USA wins it. It's in the corner. All right. So it's a difficult kick to begin with. So there's plenty of rugby people there. I'm a rugby person. I know that I didn't say anything, but I wonder who else was yelling, because, there was a lot of rugby people there. I'm sure there was some new fans as well that were yelling their heads off. But there was a loud roar, and by God, he cross-faced it and missed the kick for us to win the game. I was jumping up and down. It was like one of the greatest moments of my life, it seemed like, at that point.
And it seemed like the noise was an element to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I wonder if all of these people that are like, as you were mentioning, I know this is not you specifically, that are like, we're above this. We're so great. We are rugby people. We don't yell at the kicker. I wonder how many of those people were yelling at that moment, because it was a big moment for USA Rugby in general. So
I mean, the devil's in the details, and everybody's got principles until they're challenged, right? It's a good question, and I think that your prediction is a good one. I don't know if I'd be surprised to see it go away completely, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it change a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think it could be an element. I think a lot of the guys, this is speculation, but I think a lot of the guys who are not from the US, who come from more traditional rugby countries where respecting the kicker is generally, observed, it not being observed in the US is one thing that sets American sports apart a little bit. So I can also see those guys being like, no, do it the American way, and like razz the kicker like that. Don't change who you are for rugby. Like, be your authentic fan self. And if that authentic self is screaming at the kicker, then at the end of the day, I can't stop you, and neither can a guy with a microphone.
Yeah. Speaking of the guy with the microphone, I wanted to have him on. We have a connect with somebody that knows him.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, he didn't get back to me, but I hope at some point we can have him on the show. I'd love to get his perspective on it, because it wasn't this most recent game, it was the one before, where he continued to say, please be quiet for the kicker, or whatever he said. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
Over and over.
To a crowd of hot, angry New England drunks.
Yeah.
Who were just not having it.
My question is he getting that directive from the club to make sure he's saying that before every kick? Is that his personal, opinion on respecting the kicker? Is that because listen, if you're gonna do it, because the only reason he's doing it is because there's no jumbotron, right? In other stadiums, they would have that just on the jumbotron, and no mic man is probably going to say anything about it. You're just going
Right.
to read and react to what's happening on the
Yeah.
jumbotron. But I just wonder if it's his decision to say it and say it multiple times, because the multiple part is what gets me a little annoyed.
Yeah, I think maybe he picked up the rope there when he didn't need to. In hindsight's 2020. You say it one or two times. Repeating yourself for emphasis is completely understandable. I would be surprised to see it happen again at that level of insistence, just because it wasn't really successful. But also, that was a moment where the crowd was, irritated about a different thing already,
Yep.
and they were just primed to be difficult. And I also don't think that. I think both things were extreme. I think the crowd's resistance to quieting down when asked to
Mhm.
politely was kind of elevated because of the moment. And
Yeah.
then I think because they were elevated, he was a little bit more insistent than normal, trying to enforce a norm,
Yeah.
which is not always easy to do, especially when you're still just establishing those. So it makes sense to me why it shook out the way it did, and I don't can't blame him for that. I think there's a lot of pressure in that role because the guy with the microphone is the only person really who can communicate with all the fans in that moment. It's all the pressure's on him, so
It's a
it's
tough job
a
to
tough
do.
spot to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to have that job. So some,
It's a tough one for sure.
yeah, absolutely. Some thoughts from the Rangers here. I've got Joel, who just wanted to go by his first name. He says, "Who cares? Honestly, rugby in America is going to succeed and be commercially viable if more newcomers to the game support it. And more new people means that the players make real professional athlete wages, and the game we love reaches a larger audience. So why gatekeep at all? Let the rowdy bastards and the kick shushers share a table. I think part of what chaps my rear end, this is what I'm going to say there, that's not what he put, is their air of superiority about respect the kicker that always devolves into, if you don't like it, F off back to American football. Dudes, rugby in America ain't going to make it without American football fans. What value is there in trying to mock another sport to gain traction? I appreciate that you guys are in the let's see how it plays out camp. I feel like we have so much more ground to cover to grow the game. Try explaining a rolling maul to a newcomer to rugby before shushing the crowd."
It's a really well made point. And I think that uh, people who feel strongly about respecting the kicker um, need to be very careful to make sure that they are welcoming people into rugby by teaching them about a thing and not lecturing people
Right.
about rugby, right?
Yeah.
And I can use myself in a mistake as an example. My friend Wes, who's now a founding member, came and checked the Free Jacks out, and he's in. He loves to yell. He's a razzer. He's done some comedy. He's a funny guy. He's got a coach voice, and he enjoys hollering at the players. And that's his thing. And a couple weeks ago, there was something very innocuous happening. The referees were just talking to each other. It was just a very normal conference. And he also said something innocuous, like, "Yeah, have your chat," you know. And he's just having a good time. People are always laughing.
Yeah.
He livens it up. He knows not to push it too much. He doesn't scream the whole match. He just throws out some good lines every once in a while. And I just sitting near him, I was just kind of stopped and said, "Oh, Wes, we don't like do that. Like the referees are off limits, basically." And I was a little bit lectury, but also we're coworkers and good friends, and
Right.
it was okay. I would never treat a random person like that. You have to approach people with respect if you're gonna say something like we don't do that in rugby. And that might be respecting the kicker, that might be razzing the refs, that might be disrespecting the players. I think banter is fine. Obviously, anything actually nasty or hateful, I think, is over the line. Respect is a core value in rugby. And, people, again, crowds at sporting events are crowds. You can't control a crowd, but that doesn't mean I can't judge you.
Right.
And I'm not going to get confrontational, but and again, I'm talking specifically about being nasty to players and what isn't appropriate in fan behavior there.
Yeah.
Not the respect the kicker thing. People are free to make their own choice, and ultimately the culture is going to be established organically. But you have to be, if you have an opinion and you want someone to share your opinion, you have to approach them with respect and, see where they're coming from. And with regards to the rugby and football thing, rugby has an inferiority complex at times in the US to American football, and it doesn't serve it well. So I played football growing up and did not enjoy it very much, and then loved rugby for all the ways it's not football, right? But after having that chip on my shoulder for a while, eventually through talking to people, realized that you really gotta get rid of that chip for the reason that the listener said. You can't grow rugby in the United States without football fans. It's not going to happen. So pitting the two sports against each other is really, really foolish. And don't let respecting the kicker become a rugby versus football thing. Just make it a rugby thing. You don't have to bring football in it at all. Well, I've been around rugby for a long time. I've always really enjoyed that respect is a core value. And to me, respecting the kicker is part of that. And it's a part of my enjoyment of the sport. That's how you can frame it. And in doing that, you're sharing something about rugby with a fan, something they may or may not know. You're doing it in a way that respects them, because you're just talking about yourself and your feelings instead of telling them what they need to do or how they need to feel.
So we've got a pro respect the kicker thought here from Gravy. My main stance, more or less, is that respecting the kicker is part of a coveted, unique rugby culture that drew me into the sport in the beginning. It's up there with the respect for the ref as a player on the field, i.e., yes, sir, responses despite agreeing or disagreeing with a call or interpretation. Some may argue that it is part of a home field advantage. However, I'd say our real home field advantage is the electric energy from our fans when they cheer on our boys, especially when they're down. Fans have the ability to ignite players without booing the other team. So I will say that my girlfriend has a very similar perspective. It's like, don't heckle the other team, cheer on your own guys.
Yeah, I mean that letter sums my stance up pretty well. That's pretty much how I feel. It is associated with the respect for the referee, to me, and again, just part of the whole idea of respect as a core element of rugby and what makes it great. And what other sport can you stomp on somebody's face and then like you buy each other a beer later and you're genuinely fine, because you had a mutual respect for each other and you have a mutual respect for each other. So again, it's a neat thing about rugby, that we can welcome people to and invite them to come. And if they don't want to come, that's their choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's gonna wrap it on up here, guys. We appreciate you listening in here. If you have any comments, send us to us on email at jacksrangershow@gmail.com or any of our social media outlets. I mean, the discussion is going to continue. It doesn't end right here. I mean, I don't think we figured it all out by any means. I don't think we've convinced.
You don't think?
I don't know. Made valid points here, but I don't think
we're pretty authoritative.
I don't think it's the end of this discussion by any means. I think it's going to go on for years to come, and then eventually, I think it won't be a thing anymore. So
absolutely, it'll be interesting to watch, and I'll repeat myself. If you think we should respect the kicker, the best thing you can do is respect people who disagree with you and tell them why we should respect the kicker.
Love that. That sums it up. Fantastic, Dave. It's been a great one. Unfortunately, we don't have a game this week to make a prediction for, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun on this one, and I'll see you next week.
See you next week. Huzzah. Go Free Jacks. Enjoy.
Yep.
your bye week. We'll just say that. Enjoy the life.
There you go.